She's the first person with multiple sclerosis to climb to the summit of Mount Everest. Lori Schneider is my special guest next on I Remember. Hi, I'm Jim Peck. Welcome to I Remember. Joining me tonight is Lori Schneider. In sharing her story of climbing the world's tallest peaks, she hopes to inspire others to reach their own personal goals. Let's take a look.
Outdoor enthusiast Lori Schneider loves a good challenge, and she's found a few while traveling to over 50 countries around the world. As a mountain climber, Lori is one of a select few who have stood on top of the tallest peaks on all 7 continents. In 1993, she climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. In 2000, she went to South America to climb Mount Aconcagua in Argentina. Being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a chronic neurological disease, didn't stop her. 2 years later, she stood at Europe's highest point on Mount Elbrus in Russia. It was on to North America's highest peak when she climbed Denali in Alaska in 2006. In 2008, she ascended Mount Kosciuszko, the tallest mountain in Australia, and also took on Mount Vincent, the tallest in Antarctica. Lori Schneider reached for the top of the world when she began a climb of Mount Everest in Nepal. It's the tallest peak at over 29,000 feet. Oxygen helps many a climber at that elevation. In May of 2009, Lori Schneider became the first person with MS to reach the summit of Mount Everest and the first to conquer the 7 summits. To help raise awareness of MS, Lori held up a flag on Mount Everest to spotlight World MS Day, organized by the Multiple Sclerosis International Federation. As the founder of Empowerment Through Adventure, she's organizing a trip to Mount Kilimanjaro in 2011 for others with MS. A former teacher, Lori Schneider is now an inspirational speaker, giving presentations to adults and children about her experiences. Her mission is to help others to climb beyond their own limitations.
Is there any way to describe the feeling of standing on the top of Mount Everest?
You know, the whole experience was surreal. People said, what was it like to be on top of the world? Mm-hmm. And for 16 years, I had dreamed of that. I'd been climbing 16 years to get the 7 summits completed. I got to the top of Everest. It was 4 below zero and a blizzard, 60-mile-an-hour winds. I looked out and we couldn't see a thing after all these years. And
no view.
All I could really do was to look inside. And what I realized was in all of those years of climbing that I had changed from this woman who at one time would have been scared to death to do something like climb Everest. I'd become brave over the years, and it was a feeling of peace and comfort to be up there knowing that I'd finished this lifelong dream. Still had to go down. That was the hard part.
But
not
an unimportant concept.
Yes. In a lot of ways.
Physically, what is it like? I mean, is it like 100-yard square? Is it 1,000-yard square? Is it tiny? What is it?
It's a very small bump in the ground where it's covered with snow. On top, there's a shrine, and it's coated with prayer flags all around it that are hanging on it. And you get to the top, and foolishly we unclipped from our safety line to go stand there. And because I didn't have a good view around it, I didn't realize that it was dropping off 8,000 feet all around it.
Oh my Lord.
But you stand up there and, you know, take your summit photo, put on your big smile in the cold, you pull down your oxygen mask. You know, my eyelashes were frozen, everything was just very, very cold. But it's an amazing experience to be on that one little bump.
What do you do? Do you dance? Do you have champagne? I mean, what's it like?
You're very tired because you've been walking for 10 hours to get to the summit, and you've still got 6 hours back down. What I did was I borrowed a satellite phone, and I tried to make 2 phone calls, one home and one to my father. I did get through to my dad, and it was an amazing experience because I was yelling, "Dad, Dad," and he's yelling, "Lori, Lori," and it was a crackly connection. And I screamed, I made it. And we're both choking back tears. And then he said to me, now we've got to get you down. His fear as a father was not over, but it was really exciting to share that joy with somebody because it was so monumental to me and my father too, because the first 2 climbs that I did were with my dad. So it was a culmination of a dream we both had.
We talk about Everest because it's so dramatic. And you're the first person with MS ever to climb it, but you're also the first person with MS to climb the other 6. And you did 7, the highest 7 peaks on all 7 continents.
Yeah, the highest peak on each of the 7 continents.
Why?
You know, it started out as my dad's dream. Back when I was in high school, he said, someday let's go to Africa and climb Kilimanjaro. And he was always athletic and a runner. 20 years later, we met in Africa and climbed Kilimanjaro together. Reached the top on Dad's 61st birthday.
Really?
And it was so hard. We trained for a year, but really hadn't trained in the right way. They take you up so quickly on Kilimanjaro that a lot of people suffer from altitude sickness.
I'd heard that.
Yeah, and then 6 years later, Dad wanted to do another climb. On the Millennium, we climbed Mount Aconcagua in South America, but Dad got altitude sickness at 18,500 feet and had to go back down. I was worried about him. He's worried about sending his daughter, who has MS, to the summit. But I made it on the Millennium, so it was a great way to call in, you know, the 99, 2000.
Wow. How do you train for something like that? Because I mean, you can be in great shape, but it's still, it can't be exactly what you expected when you're up there hanging next to a wall of ice.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have any sponsors for the climb, so it was really grassroots. In my backyard, I would train for the avalanche area called the Khumbu Ice Fall, where you have to cross many crevasses with ladders. And I trained for that by having a couple of hay bales set up in my backyard with a ladder across them, or ladders up trees. And I would put on my crampons and walk across them or up them.
Crampons are those
spiky things, yes.
Yes.
And then I also trained by carrying a 50-pound pack filled with dog food and hiked up and down the local ski area in our town, little town of Bayfield. And
yeah, Bayfield is not known as the jumping off spot for Everest.
Everest, no. But you know, as a step is a step no matter where you take it. So I would train about 4 hours a day and just try to do as much hiking as I could do to get my body used to carrying heavy weight. And then it's really an endurance sport as much as anything.
I would think so. Was there any time in any of the climbs that you thought, good heavens, I thought I was in good shape. This isn't working out at all?
You know, on Denali in 2006, I turned 50 that year, and I was having such back pain on Denali. We had to carry 60 pounds in a backpack and then drag another 60 in a sled behind us. So for a woman, that was really hard because that's pretty much my body weight. But when I got down from Denali, I ran a marathon 3 weeks later.
What?
Started losing vision. Yes, started losing vision in one eye. They told me it was my MS coming back. And then I said, my back really hurt on that climb as well. Well, they did an MRI and found that one of the spinal taps years before had caused a slow leak of spinal fluid, and I had a blister on a nerve in my back that was being compressed on my back. Every time I walked with that heavy pack on Denali, it was crushing it. So I ended up having back surgery, and it took me about a year to recover. So I took a year off from regular mountain climbing training and was really doing a lot of therapy to get my back in shape.
We've mentioned multiple sclerosis several times. When did you find out that that's what you had?
Well, I'd been experiencing symptoms of MS for probably at least 20 years, long before my very first climb.
Which would have been?
Well, my first climb was in 1993.
I mean, what symptoms?
I was feeling numbness and tingling in my fingers, toes, lips, those kind of things. But it wasn't until the day I woke up on January 4th, 1999, with literally half of my body had gone numb overnight, that the doctors, you know, started looking at all kinds of things. They thought stroke, Lyme's disease, lupus, MS, brain cancer. I was minutes away from a brain biopsy. I was being wheeled down a hallway where they would screw a halo device onto my head and shoulders, cut open my scalp and skull, and remove parts of my brain tissue to study because they'd noticed scar tissue in one of my brain MRIs. And I had my name paged. And I said, I want to answer that page. And they said, it's too late, the doctors are waiting for you. I said, I really want to answer that. Got on the phone, the doctor said, we're a university hospital. We change teams the first day of each month. It's March 1st, I'm your new doctor, and I don't think you have brain cancer. I said, what should I do? And he said, go to the desk, ask for a scissors, cut off the wrist bracelet, and go back to your doctor. Have them look at your tests again. Maybe they've misread one. I did that and went home, and they realized that my very first test was proving positive for MS, but it had been misread. So that was an angel in my life.
I'm not sure what's scarier.
Oh.
Brain cancer or MS. What's it like to hear that word, those two words?
I panicked. I ran away from my life. I left a 22-year marriage, a 20-year teaching career, sold my house, left my community in Colorado, and I ran away back to the safety net of my family here in Wisconsin.
I would think your marriage would have been your safety net.
I was married to a very nice man, but it scared us both, and we didn't know how to deal with it. And the way I dealt with it was running away because I wanted to do everything I could while I still had good use of my legs. I thought I would be in a wheelchair soon, and I needed to prove to myself that I was strong, and I needed to start over. And it took me 10 years to really regain that strength and confidence.
Did the doctors originally tell you you'd be in a wheelchair?
They said that that was a real possibility because after that initial numbness in half my body, about a month and a half later, the other side had gone numb as well. Oh. So I was experiencing not only the numbness, pins and needle type feeling, but I was losing vision in one eye. I was having real balance issues. I was having difficulty breathing because of the tightness around the chest muscles, which happens with MS. So I was experiencing so many symptoms. They said they thought it was rapidly progressing.
What finally kicked it over and you said, okay, I'm not going to be in a wheelchair. I'm going to continue with my life?
Well, I hid it from the world for a year. And
really?
Yes. I told my parents after about 3 months because I had to, because my dad and I were training for a climb, about a month or a year later. But they put me on some medicine to get rid of the initial inflammation that was happening in my body, and that helped. But it took me about a year to regain my strength, and I continued my weightlifting and training as if nothing had happened because I needed to prove to myself that I was still strong. And I stood on top of that mountain on Aconcagua almost a year to the day that I woke up with all the numbness. And I remember telling myself, girl, if you're strong enough to stand up here, you're strong enough to tell people you have MS without shame and without fear.
So that strikes me as so odd. What would be shameful about admitting that you had that disease?
I was embarrassed by it. We view ourselves sometimes as a physical being, and I thought people would look at me funny. They would feel sorry for me. And what I realized was I was doing enough of that for myself. And I had to get over the fear of the label of MS. And once I moved beyond that, I was able to deal with it better. And I'm very lucky right now. My MS is stable. There are so many people with MS that have trouble climbing their stairs, let alone climbing a mountain. But I'm very lucky right now, and so I'm going to do what I can when I can.
One of the things you do is go around really all over the world and talk to people about this. Take a minute, and what would you say to someone?
Well, my story is not just about climbing the mountains of the world. It's about climbing those mountains in your life. My mountain is MS. Other people may have physical ailments. They may have diseases like cancer, Lyme's disease, lots of different things. They may have financial mountains to climb. It's all about putting one one foot in front of the other and taking those steps to climb the obstacles in your life. They're all scary and they're all hard, but you can move forward if you just take it a step at a time. And my message is, don't be afraid to try. You may not summit. I may not summit my next one, but I'm going to get one step farther than I am today if I just try.
Let's go back to mountain climbing for a moment. You don't just decide you're going to go and climb a mountain, drive to the mountain, get your stuff, and go up. There's a lot of red tape involved,
Yes.
isn't there?
You know, climbing a mountain like Everest, you have to have a resume. You give it to the climbing company about a year in advance that says you've climbed lots of peaks over 20,000 feet. You have to prove to them that you're not a risk to yourself or to anyone else on that climb.
Yeah, because they're going to have to send somebody up after you.
Yes, and with my MS, I tell the climbing companies that I have it. They know ahead of time. I take a letter from my doctor that says she is very capable. She's not a threat to herself or anyone else. And then you go, and when you get on the mountain, they still take those days as you're approaching base camp. Is a 10-day hike alone just to get to base camp. Then you prove to them that you've got the skills you need to do those technical aspects. And we practice and train and get better and faster at it. But you really have to prove that you're able to do a mountain like Everest or Vincent Massif in Antarctica or Denali, those mountains that are really technical in nature.
Antarctica.
Brr.
Thank you.
Coldest, windest, driest continent on Earth.
It is. It's actually a desert. They get
Yes,
no rainfall.
yes.
But cold. Yeah, and you're up in the air. Yeah, with wind.
Yeah.
What is it like?
Oh, sometimes it's downright miserable. Our first attempt at the summit, it was 45 degrees below zero, 45-mile-an-hour winds. We were bundled. We got within 200 feet of the summit, and the call was made to turn around. It was so deadly dangerous.
Now,
We
is there
had
a
to turn
temptation
around.
to say, come on, we can make two more
You know,
100 feet?
it was so cold. It was scary. It was one of those things where it was a judgment call, but it was like a mountain is not worth your life. So after 10 hours of walking up, 6 hours back down, we got down to camp and we got up the next morning and I said, I want to try again. Now our team was a 4-member team, 2 climbers that were male, a guide, and myself. I always go with a guide because I don't have enough experience on the mountains to take myself. The other 2 climbers, the male climbers, had called it quits after a few days because of the cold temps and the wind and the physical extremes. But so our second attempt, the guide looked at me thinking, whoa, maybe we're done. Good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm out
and
of
I
here.
said, I can't quit. I cashed in the last of my savings, $40,000 savings from my teaching career. I had trained for 9 months. I couldn't give up. But we made it to the top, and this time it was only 25 below and no wind, and it was very balmy because it's 24-hour sunlight, November, December, January. So it was pretty exciting to be up on top and gorgeous. You could see for miles.
Unlike the Everest experience.
Yes.
You mentioned that you bring a note from your doctor. You know, please allow Lori to go on this trip. She really is pretty good at this sort of
She
thing.
really wants to do it.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've thought of this. What happens if you have an incident, an MS incident, while you're on the mountain?
Well, we take the precautionary medicine along with us. I take medicine that's an anti-inflammatory, and I would take it in high doses should it happen on the mountain. The climbing company also has an injectable that they would give me. But really, worst case scenario with my MS is that I would experience a lot of numbness and tingling. That's not enough to stop me. If I was worried about it, he said, turn around. If you feel this is your summit, you turn around. If I start to lose vision again, it happens in one eye. I'm still going to be able to have the vision I need to turn around and go back down. So I'm not a threat to myself or anyone else. It would be disappointing to me, you know, definitely. But I could make a judgment call based on how safe is this for me to continue. It may be all right. A little numbness and tingling wouldn't stop my efforts. If it was severe enough that I thought it was harming my body, I don't want to harm my body. I'm going to turn around and go back down.
You mentioned money that you'd cashed in. This stuff is very expensive. I didn't realize it until I started preparing for this program.
Oh, it's terrible. Everest, depending on the climbing company you go with, but if you go with a good, reputable company, with the extra oxygen that most people buy, it costs around $80,000 for the climb itself, with another $10,000 in gear and another $10,000 for incidentals. I didn't have that kind of money. I am a retired teacher, spent the last of my money to go to Antarctica. So I had one day I called my Leap of Faith Day. In fact, I wear my Leap of Faith necklace because the day that I decided I was going to do this, I thought, banks have money. Go to a bank. I asked them for a loan for $80,000, and they said, oh, down payment on a house or a really great car? And I kind of mumbled to them, no, I'm going to climb Everest. And they kind of rolled their eyes because now I'm 53 years old and, you know, MS besides and a woman. And they said to me, would your father co-sign the loan? So my dad agreed to do that happily, and we still have a joke that, you know, here I am in my 50s and I had to have Papa co-sign. But it was worth it, and I'm just starting to pay that now through the speaking engagements. But I had one shot at this mountain. I knew that I had to make the best of every single day because I didn't have the luxury of trying again in a year. You know, this is it, and this was big stakes for me to take out that loan. But I got up every morning with a smile on my face thinking, I cannot believe I'm here, and how great is this that I've been blessed to have this experience. So I loved it. Yes, it was difficult. It's extremely difficult and hard and tiring, but mentally my mind was there every step of the way thinking, what a gift I've been given to even have the privilege that my legs right now with MS are allowing me to do that. So I felt like I was carrying kind of the hopes and dreams of all of us with MS.
But it's very scary. Didn't you tell me before we went on the air that you actually passed a climber who didn't make it?
Yeah, I've passed a very famous climber who was frozen in the ice, and that alone would have been enough to turn me around. But I had a mantra this whole climb, and it was, don't let fear in, because Everest is full of scary things. Avalanches happen night and day. You hear them all the time. You see them. You wonder where to hide. And I had to tell myself, in order to keep myself safe, I couldn't let the fear in. So yes, I realized the dangers, but I had to progress as if I was going to be safe, because I couldn't worry about the what ifs, because then I wouldn't be safe. And when I passed that frozen climber, I stopped in my tracks and I said, what is that? I could tell what I thought it was, and when I was told who it was and what it was, I thought, I have to keep going and keep myself safe, keep my mind on it, because really half of Everest is a mental game. The other half is physical, probably a little luck thrown in there too, but you know, I really had to keep that mental game.
Yeah, the luck certainly, because you could have a turn of weather and just not be able to make that next 200 feet.
Yeah, because really Everest is climbed in about a 5-day weather window. That's it. In May, you get a few good days. You look at the weather charts every day. We get a weather guide that says, you know, here are the next 5 days. You wait till you see one that has 5 good days, because that's how long it takes you to go up and down. But our climbing company said, we don't want to go with the masses on the first day or the second day, because there's one rope. You go up and down. We held back a couple of days, pushed that weather window.
Pushing your luck.
And the weather started to get bad, but it was a really good strategic move. That company that I climbed with had great experience, and it paid off for us because we were able to shoot to the summit, get back down to base camp. We got in our tents that night, woke up, the tent was buried with 3 feet of snow overnight, and we had to evacuate out. The yaks had to break trail, hiked out. Some people helicoptered off. I didn't have the money, so I hiked the 3 days out, but it was an amazing experience. And one other climber we hiked out, and one guide as well. So.
Didn't you get a yak delivery?
I did. Right before I left for the climb, the World MS Day, international headquarters in London had heard that this woman with MS was attempting Everest. They called me and said, would you take a flag in hopes that you'll make the summit? Carry those hopes and dreams to the summit for all of us with MS. They sent it to me, but it didn't arrive in time. So when it got to Kathmandu in Nepal, they strapped it on the back of a yak. It took 2 weeks to get to me, and when I got it, it was in a little Ziploc bag. I unfurled it, and it smelled a little yakkish.
I really,
but
I'm not going to ask you
I put
what,
it in my jacket
yes,
and
what that
carried
smells
it up.
like.
It's wonderful.
It's not exactly FedEx, is it? Yes.
But we had 50 yaks to carry the gear for 14 climbers, 5 guides, and about 20 Sherpas, who are the amazing lifeline.
30
support
seconds, Lori Schneider, how would you like to be remembered?
As a person who had something in their life that scared them, my personal mountain was MS, but that I was able to put one foot in front of the other and move forward. And I hope that other people learn to take it one step at a time too and give it a shot. Life is exciting and worth living if you give it a shot.
You got a great story. I can't imagine anybody ever going to sleep in one of your lectures. Thank you for being with us. Thank you. I hope you
Jim.
join us next time as we continue to remember. Thank you.